Here's a question for you. Why should you try Hades? Obviously, because it's a fucking good game. But there's a lot more to it, and I'm gonna be discussing about that. But if you actually think about wanting to get the game, my advice is try to know as little as possible going in. Just know that it's a dungeon crawler, and it's based on Greek mythology. For me, I didn't actually know what was going on when I joined the game. I just picked it up and started going off, and I think that's the best experience. Because I didn't do any guides, didn't follow any books or advice, and I just tried. Because the thing is with the game, there are 6 different weapons, I think like 10 different gods. So there's an infinite combination of boons and weapons and like builds that you're trying to go for. So if you follow guides and try to aim for specific builds to speedrun a game, yes, you'll be good at the game and you'll be able to finish it a lot faster. But at the same time, you don't get to experience the trying out different things and going for what's right, what's wrong, going into a dungeon, dying, come out, go back in, die, come out, and just keep trying that, see what works for you, see what you think is your favorite, and then like evolve from that point. So I have a bunch of friends who joined the game recently, and because I'm talking with them, I tell them which boons work, which boons don't work, like, oh, the bow is better, or the shield is really hard to use in its earlier form. Then you don't get that feeling of exploration as you enter the game and just, oh damn, this is the new world I've never been in before, and I don't know who any of these enemies are. So yeah, as a general advice, if you actually think of picking it up, it's a good game. Don't try to find out anything about it. But if that doesn't convince you enough, the one big thing about Hades, which I am like absolutely amazed by, is the sense of lore and depth within the game. There are a lot of games which are really similar to it. Like I've played 3 games like Soul Knight and Archeo on my phone. But the difference between this game and those games are, this game, Hades, has just such a rich and deep lore. There's a big thing about having infinite number of texts. So whenever you talk to somebody, they'll always have new texts, and this can go on after talking to them for 40 times, 100 times. And the game kind of progresses from that point onwards. So when I first joined the game, I didn't even know that there would be any plot. But then slowly, as I made my 3rd or 4th run, a little bit of plot was dropped here and there. And I was like, oh wow, what's going to happen next? And the game just kept on developing from there until there was a plot that I didn't even see coming at all. And then after I finished the main plot, there's still more plot to come along. And with each plot comes different types of texts. And every time you complete a new dungeon or beat a new weapon, there also comes more text. And the game keeps on developing itself, and that's why I think it stands up compared to any other game that I've really played. Like with Pokemon, you can speak to an NPC once, and that's it. But with Hades, you can speak to Achilles too many times, honestly. It's come to a point where I speedrun the text, so I quickly read the first line. If it's not interesting, I just press through, and I just keep pressing through because there's just so much, and I just want to run into the game. There's a big part of Hades is the speedrunning community, and I've tried to like follow the advice and enter dungeons and try to be there as fast as possible. So currently my fastest time is 14 minutes, 13 minutes, 50 something seconds. And when I started off, I was actually at 22 minutes. So in-game time, I've really improved as the game goes on. So with speedrunning, there's just so many ways to do it, and obviously there's good advice that you can find online. But I think a challenge for any newcomers should be try to find what works for them, and then try to beat the game as fast as possible with that build, so you know what you actually like. Because the speedrunning community has given like essentially cheat sheets on what you can do to optimize the game perfectly, and it's really fun to clear a room with bam boom. But it's not the same as finding a weapon that you think will work. And eventually you'll probably end up with the recommendations from the speedrunning community, but all along the way you'll have your own adventure trying to find what works and what doesn't work. Yeah, really a big part of my experience with Hades was finding what I think works. And the fun part about it is once you complete the game, it gets even harder. There's these things called heats, and you can add on more heats, which means you make it more difficult. An example would be take 20% more damage from enemies, or enemies having 40% more speed. And so I had this little competition with my friend. So I would finish 8 heat, and he'd finish 8 heat, and we'll see who can get there first. Then we went to 16 heat, and we competed against each other. Then we bumped it up to 32 heat, and after a lot of frustration, I actually made it to 32 heat. And the fun part about that is when I drop myself down back to 12 heat. 12 heat is easy. I can finish it without any trouble. And it's not that my character has gotten stronger. Well, it is true that my character has gotten stronger, but I think mostly it is due to I've optimized the way I play. I see it as a sort of a tempo idea, so I keep a beat in my head with a certain weapon about should I dash, attack, dash, or is it dash, special, and attack, something like that. There was one point in time with Hades that I thought I was going to fail. I thought I could never beat it. I think it was on my 20th something run, and every time I went in I would die. I made it to the final boss once or twice, but then I just kept dying, and I just kept dying and dying. But then there's that small little breakthrough. Something changes on that one day. Maybe you just get really good luck, a good RNG, get a nice weapon, and then suddenly you've beat the game. So you get that spirit of I'm trying to pass a wall that I cannot pass, and I make it through. So I think that's what's really important for a newcomer entering Hades. It's finding that wall and trying to break through that wall. And everyone has that wall. Even if you are playing this game really good at games in general, really good at dungeon crawlers like Diablo, eventually you'll put the heat up to a certain level where you can't beat it, and then you have to actually improve your own skill and keep pushing and wait for that one chance to make it through. And that is why Hades has such a nice competitive edge to me. It's not easy like Pokemon. You don't have to add the additional challenges, because the game itself is inherently difficult and something that you have to strive to overcome. And also the fact that there are so many combinations, that some combinations don't work, but you have to make it work in a sense. There are 6 different weapons, and God forbid if there's anybody who's good at all 6 weapons. It's called the speedrunners. But for me it's not, so I can complete the game 32 heat with, let's say, the bow. But if you give me the sword, I can't even make it past the 2nd heat, which means almost the same as just a casual playthrough without any difficulty. And that's another interesting thing about Hades, is that you have to improve your skills on everything. But you don't have to, but you're encouraged to, and if you do, you can feel yourself slowly getting better and better. And by the time you finish 110 runs, which I am at now, I can firmly say I know the game really well, but looking forwards, there's just so much more stuff for me to do. And that is why you should get Hades, because the game is such a good challenge, it's such good lore, and it really keeps you interactive.